Welcome back to U.S. Fury Force. 0900 hours. First day of the attack. Israeli radars screamed to life across the entire country. Thousands of red dots flooded the screens, not high-flying ballistic missiles, but massive swarms of deadly low-altitude drones hugging the desert floor. Inside the cockpit of an Israeli F-35, a veteran pilot heard the cold automated warning cut through his helmet. Multiple low-altitude threats. Inbound. 40 seconds. He fired chaff and flares. It didn't matter. The sky was already completely saturated. In just 5 to 7 days, 720 million liters of diesel, nearly 35% of Israel's entire operational fuel reserve, was burned to ash. 22 critical fuel sites, Haifa, Ashdod, Eilat, the Negev Desert, and key inland hubs, were turned into towering infernos of toxic black smoke. Israel's powerful Merkava tanks sat silent and useless. Their advanced F-35 fighters never left the runway. Supply convoys to the front lines in Lebanon and Gaza simply stopped dead in their tracks. This wasn't a defeat in the skies. This wasn't a ground invasion. Iran didn't beat the Israeli military. They made it run out of gas. Listen, this should deeply concern every American who cares about our national security. Israel is not just our ally, they are our strongest and most important partner in one of the most dangerous regions on Earth. If Iran can paralyze them this fast, our own bases and troops across the Gulf could face the exact same nightmare. In our detailed strategic analysis based on open-source intelligence, commercial satellite imagery, and military modeling, this was no accident. This was a cold, calculated, and highly effective campaign that struck the one weakness no amount of high-tech weapons can fully defend: the fuel lifeline. In this video, we're cutting through the spin to answer the 5 critical questions every serious American is asking. 1. How did Iran locate and destroy 22 heavily defended fuel sites deep inside Israel with such precision? 2. What was the exact sequence of attacks that collapsed the IDF supply chain in under a week? 3. What does the loss of 720 million liters of diesel actually mean on the battlefield? 4. How did the United States respond, and why couldn't we prevent this disaster? 5. What urgent lessons is the Pentagon now being forced to confront? If you believe America must remain strong and stand firmly with our allies, hit the like button right now. It helps us bring more hard-hitting, honest analysis like this. Now, let's walk through exactly how Iran brought one of the world's most advanced militaries to its knees simply by burning its fuel. Let's go step by step through exactly how this disaster unfolded phase by phase, day by day. Phase 1, Day 1, the swarm. At dawn, more than 1,800 low-cost Shahed and Mohajer drones launched from western Iran and Hezbollah bases in southern Lebanon. They came in deliberate pulses every 40 to 60 minutes, flying extremely low to hug the terrain. Their mission was deadly simple: overwhelm and exhaust Israeli air defenses. Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow systems burned through expensive interceptors chasing cheap drones. While the defenders were distracted, the real strike package broke through. Behind the swarms came the ballistic missiles Fateh, 313, and Imad variants racing toward the vital coastal fuel terminals at Haifa and Ashdod. Many carried thermobaric warheads that exploded into massive fireballs. Within 12 hours, 6 major fuel distribution terminals were engulfed in flames. Phase 2, Days 2 and 3, striking the heart. Iran then shifted to the hardened inland and underground targets. The Fateh 1 hypersonic missiles flying above Mach 5 gave Israeli defenses almost zero reaction time. Together with Khaibar Shekin missiles, they slammed into deeply buried fuel reservoirs in the Negev and near Tel Aviv. Penetrating cluster munitions drilled through reinforced concrete before detonating inside the tanks. Hezbollah unleashed over 700 rockets and drones targeting fuel convoys, while Houthi forces struck Eilat. Israeli command was stretched to the breaking point. By the end of Day 3, 14 of the 22 targeted sites had been destroyed or rendered unusable due to raging fires and heavy contamination. Phase 3 days, 4 to 7. The final collapse. Iran now focused on paralysis. They struck remaining distribution hubs, pumping stations, and critical bridges. Loitering drones hunted tanker trucks in real time, while precision strikes slowed emergency resupply to a crawl. Once the main fuel depots were gone, the dominoes fell rapidly. Fuel tanker trucks had nothing to carry, entire logistics battalions were grounded. Backup generators failed bases, lost power for vital systems. Repair teams couldn't reach burning sites because their own vehicles ran out of diesel. By day 5, powerful armored columns were forced to sit motionless. Artillery units cut back on firing missions. Logistics officers faced impossible choices: fuel the tanks or the ambulances. 720 million liters of diesel, nearly 35% of Israel's operational reserve, gone in under a week. This wasn't random destruction. This was a carefully planned systemic breakdown. A modern military built for speed and technological superiority was reduced to a static, vulnerable force, all because its fuel lifeline had been severed. Iran never tried to win the air war. They didn't need to. They simply removed the one thing that made Israel's entire military machine work. In the next section, we'll examine the specific weapons and asymmetric tactics that made this devastating campaign possible. Now, let's examine the weapons and tactics Iran used to achieve this, because this wasn't luck. This was a master class in asymmetric warfare. In our detailed strategic analysis, Iran didn't try to match Israel's expensive high-tech air force. Instead, they built a completely different kind of arsenal, cheap, numerous, and specifically designed to attack Israel's greatest weakness, its fuel infrastructure. At the heart of the operation were waves of Shahed 136 and Mohajer 10 drones. Each one costs around $20,000, a fraction of what a single Iron Dome interceptor costs. Iran didn't need them to destroy every target. They used them as pathfinders and decoys to overwhelm Israeli radar and exhaust their expensive missile stocks. Once the defenses were stretched thin, the real strike came from Iran's ballistic missile force. The Fateh 313 and Emad missiles hit the coastal facilities at Haifa and Ashdod. The Khaybar Shekin reached deeper inland targets. Most devastating of all was the Fatah, one hypersonic missile traveling faster than Mach 5. Israeli systems simply didn't have enough time to react. What made these strikes so effective wasn't just speed, it was the warhead selection. Many carried thermobaric and cluster munitions specifically engineered to ignite fuel rather than just punch holes in concrete. A thermobaric warhead creates a massive pressure wave and fireball that turns an entire fuel storage area into an inferno within seconds. Once the primary tanks were breached, the fires became self-sustaining. Contaminated fuel spread through ruptured pipelines, making rapid repairs almost impossible. This reveals the core of Iran's asymmetric strategy. Israel invested billions in the world's most advanced fighter jets, tanks, and air defense systems. Iran took a different path. They invested in mass, precision, and target selection. They understood that they didn't need to destroy every Merkava tank or F-35. They only needed to make sure those expensive weapons had no fuel to move or fly. This is the brutal math of modern warfare that should concern every American. A single Shahed drone, $20,000. A single Iron Dome missile, $50,000 to $100,000. Iran can produce drones by the thousands. Israel cannot afford to fire interceptors at that rate forever. Even more worrying, Iran built this capability with help from a growing network Russian technology for guidance systems, Chinese commercial satellite imagery for targeting, and North Korean experience in mass missile production. They turned limited resources into a very effective weapon. The lesson is clear and sobering. In 21st century conflict, the side that masters asymmetric logistics attacks can neutralize a much more technologically advanced opponent without ever winning a traditional battle. Israel had the better weapons. Iran chose the better target, and they proved that in modern war, fuel is often more important than firepower. This campaign exposed a vulnerability not just for Israel, but for any military that depends on long, complex supply lines and imported energy, including our own forces stationed across the Middle East. In the next section, we'll look at how the United States responded during those critical days and why America found itself in such a difficult position. Now we come to the part that should make every red-blooded American angry. How did the United States respond when our closest ally in the Middle East was being systematically strangled? In the opening hours, the Pentagon did move on paper. Satellite feeds confirmed the massive fires. U.S. Central Command redirected 2 carrier strike groups, the USS Gerald R. Ford and USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, toward the eastern Mediterranean. Emergency fuel airlifts were ordered. C-17S and KC-46 tankers started loading, but that's where the illusion ended. Inside the Pentagon's crisis rooms, senior generals watched the nightmare unfold in real time. One senior officer reportedly slammed his fist and shouted, "We're sitting here watching our ally run out of gas while our tankers are still on the tarmac." The frustration was palpable. But here's the brutal, infuriating truth. America could not save Israel in time. Why? Because even the world's supposed superpower has hard, unforgiving limits. First, distance. Our major fuel reserves are thousands of miles away. No matter how fast we moved, it still took 48 to 72 critical hours for meaningful fuel to reach Israel. By then, the damage was done. Second, our military is dangerously overextended, committed in Europe, facing China in the Pacific, and stretched thin everywhere. We no longer have the surge capacity we once did. Third, Iranian drones and missiles kept hammering supply routes. American tanker convoys were forced to turn back under threat. Imagine that the U.S. military afraid to deliver fuel because of Iranian drones. This is unacceptable. In our strategic analysis, this crisis revealed a shameful vulnerability. For all the trillions we spend on defense, we still depend on the same fragile fuel logistics that Iran just exploited. Our bases in Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE sit on large, concentrated fuel depots that could be turned into infernos with the exact same playbook. Pentagon planners are now running urgent war games with one terrifying question. If Iran can paralyze Israel in under a week, how long until they do the same to us? The political fallout in Washington was ugly. The White House was accused of weakness and delay. Congress demanded action. Yet the cold reality remains. Even America cannot magically teleport millions of liters of diesel across the ocean under combat conditions. This should infuriate every American who loves this country. We spend more on our military than the next 10 nations combined, yet we still find ourselves vulnerable to cheap drones and smart targeting of fuel. This is not strength, this is dangerous complacency. The lesson is urgent and unmistakable. We must immediately diversify our fuel storage, harden our logistics nodes, and stop depending on massive, easy-to-hit targets. Because next time, it won't be Israeli tanks sitting motionless, it will be American ones. In the next section, we'll examine how Russia, China, and North Korea enabled this attack and what it means for the growing axis working against American power. Now we must face an even more uncomfortable question. Who actually helped Iran pull this off, and what does this coordinated effort tell us about the growing global threat to American power? This wasn't a solo Iranian operation. In our strategic analysis, Iran functioned as the tip of the spear for a much larger axis. Russia played a critical behind-the-scenes role. Moscow provided advanced guidance technology, satellite intelligence, and real-time targeting support. Russian electronic warfare specialists reportedly helped Iran jam Israeli communications during the crucial first 48 hours. For Putin, this was payback, weakening Israel while tying down American attention and resources away from Ukraine. China played a quieter but equally dangerous part. Beijing didn't fire a single shot, but Chinese commercial satellite companies supplied high-resolution imagery that helped Iran map Israel's fuel sites with shocking precision. More importantly, China stands ready to buy millions of barrels of discounted Iranian oil if the conflict expands. This gives Tehran the financial lifeline it needs to sustain a long war. China is playing the long game, weakening America's strongest regional ally while protecting its own energy interests. North Korea contributed the hardware. Pyongyang supplied large numbers of drones, artillery shells, and short-range ballistic missile components. The Kim regime has become the factory floor for the Axis, trading weapons for oil and political protection. This is the new reality of 21st century conflict, a loose but increasingly effective axis of resistance, Iran as the frontline attacker, Russia providing technical expertise, China supplying economic and intelligence backing, and North Korea acting as the arms dealer. Every successful Iranian strike sent a clear message to Washington. We are watching, we are learning, and we are coordinating. However, this axis still has serious limits, and that's important for Americans to understand. None of these countries want a direct, all-out war with the United States right now. Russia is bogged down in Ukraine. China's economy is under pressure and fears losing access to Western markets. North Korea's military is powerful but untested in real combined operations. They prefer to bleed America through proxies and logistics attacks rather than face American carrier strike groups and overwhelming air power head-on. But here's what should trouble every serious American. Each successful Iranian operation makes this axis bolder. Every time they see Israel paralyzed and America struggling to respond quickly, the threshold for future attacks gets lower. This is no longer just about the Middle East. This is about the slow erosion of American deterrence. If a mid-tier power like Iran, backed by Russia, China, and North Korea, can successfully execute this kind of logistics warfare against our closest ally, it proves a dangerous precedent. The signal being sent is unmistakable. The era of unchallenged American dominance in the Middle East is being challenged not through direct confrontation, but through calculated, asymmetric strikes on vulnerabilities we have ignored for too long. We are no longer facing separate adversaries. We are facing a connected network of nations that share one common goal: reducing American influence across the globe. In the final section, we'll examine the human factor, the spirit and will of the Israeli people, the hard truths facing America, and what this all means for the future global order. Finally, we must talk about something that no amount of drones or missiles can destroy: the human spirit. Israel has faced existential threats before. From the moment of its founding in 1948, the Jewish people have lived by one unbreakable principle: never again. That spirit is still alive. Even as their tanks sat motionless and their fighter jets remained grounded, Israeli civilians and reservists didn't panic. Reports emerged of ordinary citizens volunteering to help repair damaged infrastructure, families donating private fuel reserves, and mechanics working around the clock to salvage what little diesel remained. The Israeli people have a deep, almost instinctive understanding that survival is never guaranteed. It must be fought for every single day. This national will is Israel's greatest weapon. Technology can be neutralized. Logistics can be disrupted, but a people who refuse to surrender, that is much harder to defeat. Now, let's speak honestly about America. This crisis has exposed a painful truth. Our illusion of effortless dominance is cracking. For decades, many in Washington believed that superior technology, carrier strike groups, and massive defense budgets would always guarantee victory. This event should serve as a serious wake-up call. We still possess unmatched advantages: the world's largest economy, the most powerful navy, unmatched industrial capacity when fully mobilized, and the finest fighting men and women on the planet. But we can no longer pretend that these advantages make us invulnerable. If a determined adversary can collapse our allies' military by attacking its fuel supply in under a week, we must ask ourselves, are we truly prepared for the next conflict? This brings us to the bigger picture, the new global order taking shape before our eyes. We are witnessing the acceleration of a genuine multipolar world. On one side stands the West, America, NATO, and key allies committed to preserving a rules-based international system. On the other side is an emerging axis, Iran as the aggressive frontline player, backed by Russia's military expertise, China's economic and technological weight, and North Korea's willingness to supply weapons. This is not a new Cold War. It's something more fluid and dangerous, a network of nations that cooperate tactically to weaken American influence wherever possible, while avoiding direct, all-out confrontation that would destroy them. The fuel strike on Israel was not just a regional battle, it was a demonstration project for this new axis. See? You don't need to defeat America's military directly. You just need to make its operations too expensive, too slow, and too vulnerable. Yet here is the hard truth that should give every American hope and resolve. Logistics matters, technology matters, but in the end, national will and economic power still decide long wars. America has rebuilt itself before. After Pearl Harbor, after the fall of Saigon, after 9/11, we have the ability to adapt, to harden our supply chains, to develop new energy technologies, and to surge production when truly needed. The question is whether we still have the national will to do it. The coming years will test us. Will we continue to spread our forces too thin across the globe? Will we keep depending on vulnerable centralized fuel depots? Or will we finally learn the lesson Iran just taught the world? In the 21st century, the side that masters both sustainment and destruction of sustainment will hold the advantage. Israel's spirit remains strong. America still possesses unmatched power if we choose to use it wisely. But the age of easy dominance is over. A new era of great power competition has begun. In our conclusion, we'll deliver our final verdict on what this all means for America's future and what must be done. In conclusion, Iran executed a ruthless and highly effective logistics strike that exposed dangerous weaknesses in modern warfare. They didn't defeat Israel on the battlefield, they simply made it run out of gas. This was more than a military embarrassment. This was a national humiliation and a serious warning to every American. My fellow Americans, especially those who remember when America stood strong and decisive, this should make you furious. We cannot keep spending trillions on the most expensive weapons on Earth only to watch them sit useless because we failed to protect the fuel that powers them. In our serious strategic analysis, based on open source intelligence and military modeling, the rules of war have changed. The side that controls sustainment will control the future battlefield. But let me be crystal clear. This is not the end of American power. It is a screaming wake-up call we had better answer. We still have the greatest military, the strongest economy, and the most courageous people on Earth. What we desperately need now is the will to stop being complacent and start getting serious again. So here's my question to you. What should America do now? Should we strike Iran's fuel infrastructure directly and send a real message? Should we radically harden our own logistics? Or is it finally time to rethink how we project power in a world that no longer fears us the way it once did? Drop your honest, no-holds-barred thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Tell me, are you concerned? Are you angry? Do you still believe America has the resolve to lead and win? If this video fired you up and told you the truth others won't, smash that like button right now. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join the fight for honest, hard-hitting analysis. This is U.S. Fury Force, where we refuse to sugarcoat the threats facing our nation. The fires in Israel may one day be put out, but the fire this crisis lit under America must keep burning. Thank you for watching. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and God bless America. I'll see you in the next video.